My doctoral dissertation concerns church singing and liturgical melodies in the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Finland in the 19th century. My main sources are the collections of liturgical melodies, and the goal is to outline the local improvement process and place it in a wider music cultural and music theological context. In the 19th century, when Finland was a part of Russian Empire, music in Finnish society was developed with determination, both in the new arenas of high culture and among ordinary people, especially in the latter part of the century. For example, the first orchestras took action in different towns. Choirs and brass bands were established also in small villages, and they started to gather together to regional and national music festivals. When elementary school system was officially founded in 1866, also the children's musical education was begun. In addition, the first music institutes to train professional musicians were set up in that time. For instance, the church warden organist schools in Turku, Helsinki, Oulu and Viborg, and Helsinki Music Institute, present-day Sibelius Academy, in 1882. The Lutheran Church was not an isolated section of society. On the contrary, the similar process with musical improvement was also going on in the church, and mainly by the same people who were participating in the development of the Finnish music culture as whole, either at local or national level. Besides, there was also a similar process underway in the other states in Lutheran Europe. For example, in Sweden and Germany, many theologians and musicians were acting for the improvement of church singing and liturgy, influenced also by the development of Roman Catholic Church music. So the process that I am researching was not only a local process here in Finland. Although the agents were acting locally, the phenomenon was translocal. As I already said, my main sources are the collections of liturgical melodies. This means that I am leaving hymns out of my research. The reason for this solution is that there already is a valid academic dissertation concerning hymns in the latter part of the 19th century by Doctor of Theology Hannu Vapaavuori. The official church was not quite interested in liturgical melodies in the 19th century. It was written many times in the divine service agenda that the minister sings or the congregation sings, but there were not any notations for the melodies. The latest official collection of the liturgical melodies was from the year 1702, and it consisted 4 different series of liturgical melodies originated from the Catholic era. After the Lutheran Reformation, liturgical singing had started to get poorer little by little, and in the beginning of the 19th century, there was only one series of liturgical melodies left, and it was called Suomalainen messu in Finnish and Svenska mässan in Swedish. Also, the level of church singing in general was very poor according to contemporary specialists. One reason for this was that the office of church warden, lukkari in Finnish, klokkare in Swedish, was not first and foremost to be a musician. Even though church warden was a predecessor of present-day cantor, in the beginning of the 19th century, they had much more other tasks than musical ones. For example, teach children to read, carry the mail of clergy, vaccinate people, and sometimes even brew beer for the ministers. So church singing was unaccompanied and in unison. As I said, the church administration was not very interested in liturgical music. That is why there were many individual agents, ministers, church wardens, musicians, who published their own collections of liturgical tunes. There were also liturgical music in many handwritten choral books. The first published collection was Suomalainen Messu by Fredrik August Erström from year 1837. It was monophonic and meant to the psalmodicon. This long single-stringed instrument played with a bow was developed in Scandinavia in the beginning of the 19th century, and it was used to support hymn singing at home or at school. Since Finnish clergymen complained about the low standard of church singing, they began to buy and build the psalmodicons. The aim was to improve the singing and to standardize melodies, for in the absence of printed books of choral melodies, regional and local choral variants emerged. The psalmodicon could be played by people with little musical training, because there were numbers written over the words, corresponding to numbers painted on the fretboard of the instrument. I want to emphasize that the psalmodicon was meant only for learning. It was not used as an accompaniment instrument in divine services. The first polyphonic collection of liturgical tunes was published by the church warden of Vaasa, Anders Nordlund, in 1850. And it was based on Swedish predecessors by J.C.F. Hefner and Olof Åhlström. This kind of notation was meant to four-parted singing, and not by the choir, but by the congregation. The idea was to train the congregation to sing four-parted. As you can guess, it did not mainly work. There were good results in only 3 or 4 parishes in Finland. But in that time, the amount of the organs was rising rapidly in Finland, and these four-parted choir versions were started to be used as an organ accompaniment. The same change concerned also hymns. The four-parted arrangements of the new choral books were meant to polyphonic singing, but they were mainly used as an organ accompaniment. Altogether, 18 collections of liturgical melodies were published in the 19th century. Some of them monophonic for the psalmodicon, and most of them polyphonic for the four-part singing or the organ accompaniment. They were based on either the Swedish predecessor, earlier Finnish collections, or both of them. There were also some influences from the Baltic German liturgical tradition used also in St. Petersburg and Ingria. As a conclusion, what I am going to do exactly? First, I am now plowing through the material and making the comparison between the collections of liturgical music. I am researching which one is based on which one. I am checking the key and time signatures, changes in melodies, rhythms and harmonies, etc. And by all this I try to outline the genetics of the Finnish Mass, how it varied and changed during the century. Besides, I am going to analyze what kind of impact the music culture of surrounding society and the European liturgical trends had on this process. And finally, I am going to introduce 3 or 4 editors of the collections of liturgical melodies as examples of the agents of this improvement process. Nevertheless, I am already in the beginning of my research, and this is the plan right now. But as you know, it can change many times until my doctoral dissertation will be ready. It is going to be a huge job, but I think I'm crazy enough to do it. Thank you.